So Midjourney version 7 is pretty cool in that if you add words, then you can make images. I don't know if that sounds impressive, but if you train Midjourney version 7, then you can personalize a style and that can make a world feel more like yours. There's a lot of hubbub around AI art and what it means for the human spirit. And as an artist, I can say that AI art doesn't exist in the ways that most people consume media. Like the reason why I make art is because it has a spiritual connection to the reasons why I relate to creation at all. So when I explored Midjourney, I thought that it was kind of cool, and a lot of the images didn't feel very practical. Like I could see why somebody would generate an image, but I could also relate to the reasons why I engaged with media. And I noticed there was a gap between the images that were generated and the things that I would want to do with my time. Like, could you imagine going to the movie theater and just staring at a painting? Maybe not, but if you pay $10 for a museum, then you might spend 2 hours staring at a painting if you've gone to that museum before. Because the reason why you're going to the museum is to relate to a space, and eventually, after a number of visits to the museum, you find a reason to spend particular time with a particular painting. I've had a few domains for a while related to the Boon Bane Bone ecosystem, and there are hundreds of videos that I've made with the hashtag Boon Bane Bone. Another account, lore.land, ties into this, and I've been producing a musical on TikTok. I've been planting the seeds for a musical on TikTok. As a web developer, I thought that more people would want domains, and I thought that web development was something that more people wanted to own. And now I know it's mostly something people want to watch and sometimes interact with, which is fine. If you're a software developer, then you know how to clone a repository, and that can be a way that you interact with the concept of a game or the concept of a show. And if there's a place for you to get visual assets, then you can associate that with what can you associate that with? A lot of stuff. Like you can ask Gemini to create game assets and then play a game that's stylized based on your favorite artist. And now it's possible for an artist to train Midjourney to copy their style. So if you want to play Mario Bros, then you can stylize Mario Bros in my art style if I make that available to you. This is where TV is headed. The concept of an NFT wasn't, I mean, it's technology. So you can do a lot with the tool, with the technology, with the medium. The point of an NFT from an artist to a person who values art isn't to scam the person who's buying the art. It costs money to have a domain and host a domain. Like annually, you need to pay a fee to keep a domain online, and hosting content at that domain has variable costs. So the concept of an NFT is mostly the concept of a receipt, where you describe that you have some amount of buy-in to an ecosystem, and then with that, there are resources that are more available to you. A few of my domains have gone up, and I kind of expected this, but it is difficult. But I can say that if you want access to the content at those domains, then you can just pay the amount the domain cost in a year. My domains cost $54, and if you send me that amount, I'll send you a receipt. And I'll generate a whole bunch of assets for you that you can use to seed your own style. Throughout the year that I have these domains online, I'll probably post, actually, yeah, I've already posted hundreds of videos, so if you want to, you can go through my TikTok and find one video per day. But depending on where there's interest and where there's hype, then I'll be more motivated to have the content that I produce be more specific to specific domains. I had an idea that charging a monthly subscription fee would be something that people would be interested in, but it's anxiety inducing, especially now with the economy. So if you pay a one time fee of pretty much any amount, understanding that the domains cost $54 per year, then I can send you a fraction of Like what I've already done, you can already access that on TikTok. It's going to be chaotic because of the other videos that I've made. Like it isn't the most navigable, but I can make interfaces where it's easier for you to find the specific content associated with a specific domain. Very much in the spirit of theater. Pay what you can, pay what you think the show is worth. This is where TV is headed. Cheers. I think there's a pretty valid argument you can make that Netflix and Disney have already canonized the production process for online media. So, TV as it existed through cable is somewhat being preserved through Netflix and Disney, but there's also a lot of decay that's happening culturally where TV isn't being shared as an experience. Like, there used to be things to look forward to that came out on a regular schedule, and now it's just available on demand. And there isn't a reason necessarily that people need to challenge themselves by sitting through commercials, for example. So, for the sake of valuing time, I think that TikTok is where that placement of value comes from. And that's mostly what I meant to say. Um, like, TV as a medium is going to exist, and people are going to sit in front of a box and then receive dopamine however they want to, for however long they want to. But in terms of cultural impact, I think TikTok plus stickers plus custom generations are the new version of TV. And major producers have described that they look for Instagram peeps. Like watching reels on Instagram is where people seem to be paying attention and where producers look when they hire talent. YouTube has a TV concept too, so it isn't just Netflix and Disney. I'm thinking about this and would appreciate more of your thoughts. Cheers. Tech companies are starting to run into a wall with AI where they know that there's more they can do with it, but contextualizing what that actually means is the challenge. In the US, there are like 350, is it 350 million people, 330 or something like that? And everybody has a perspective, and some perspectives depend on what other people think about what other people think. So with AI, there are like actual needs in the world that AI can do, and there are actual things that you wouldn't want AI to do because it's a black box. Knowing that is a matter of technical prowess. You need a decent amount of experience to be able to navigate what you would delegate to an artificial intelligence, to an artificially intelligent system. So, this is where the idea of a billion-dollar person company comes from. But for the most part, that's like the companies that have very few people are going to rely on relationships still, anyways. And this is where storytellers come in, and the reason why I've been spending so much time supporting random authors on Book Talk. Not really random authors. For the most part, I only have some energy. I have finite energy, and the authors who I've continued to pay attention to, I guess, I'm not sure how to describe that. There were a few projects that I wanted to work on, and mentioning AI made it impossible to work on those projects, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to continue those. But some of the other authors that I've spent a long time just having casual conversation with are good storytellers, and they've been able to string together series of words across hundreds of pages with dozens of people reviewing their work. It is technically possible to prompt AI to generate slop, and in the modern attention economy, some people will pay attention to it, but that isn't good necessarily. It isn't really good. We want people to be challenged by some concept so they can develop a perspective about how they can navigate those spaces. Not only challenge, because that's exhausting and doesn't necessarily result in growth. Like if you try to bench press 300 pounds more than you can weigh, more than you can carry, then you're going to get crushed. So there is an amount of incremental challenge that's related to human development that goes into media. But when everybody can access everything on demand, what does it mean for someone to navigate the minor hurdle of interacting with what your software does, even if it helps them? There are people who I've met on TikTok who talk about sustainable development, who talk about sustainable living, and have for years. Some of them have apps, and the hurdle of interacting with an app is reduced when we have conversations live on TikTok. But with that, the story that I'm interacting with is I am on TikTok and I appreciate interacting with these experiences. Oh, cool. I met someone. What are they talking about? And then they talk about, pardon, then they describe what they're doing and it's interesting to me. So the narrative buy in that I receive from that experience is that TikTok has a lot of potential and that feels cool. It feels like a magical portal almost to be able to have conversations with people who are building things that I actually might care about instead of just scrolling through the App Store and clicking on whatever and then needing to learn something. Though to be fair, I appreciate learning things and there are so many things that I can learn that reducing the number of things to learn requires work. It requires effort and having finite energy makes it more difficult to just dive into learning a new subject. All of this to say that tech companies aren't the only place of value, they aren't the only source of value. And the tech companies that have received a lot of funding to contextualize what humanity means in the context of AI have run into a need to contextualize meaning more. And this is where authors can come in. Why would an author spend years debating over hundreds of thousands of words? Maybe not even hundreds of thousands of words. A novel is 50,000 words, so why would somebody spend that amount of time considering a word? Don't authors know the alphabet exists? They can just arrange the alphabet. You can do that with AI. It's very fast to say, hey, AI, here are 26 letters. But the actual emotion that goes into the production of storytelling is more significant. And that's where tech companies are looking. If you're an author and you want to know more about this, DM me. You can maybe join me on a live, but I don't know when I'm going to have the energy and the space to be present for the kinds of structures that are more accessible to the artist community. Working on that. Cheers. If you have a software business and you haven't started exploring AI, then start making content about how you're adapting your business to use AI. If you work for a company that has code, start finding ways to turn your code into art. It isn't going to be easy, and the parts that are challenging you can describe, and if you want to, you can market the challenges as a book later. You can make a book about what was difficult about translating a $100 million line code base into AI, or whatever. The point is, nobody cares about software except for people who write software. And there are a lot of people who write software, which is cool, but the space in between is the challenging space. When I was in college, I founded a student organization called Student Body for Meaningful Education, which was meant to explore meaning through discussion, connection, and creation. I met with administrators, students, professors, and just people who found the idea interesting, and I learned why people went to college. Then later, I drew with people in bars and learned that a lot of people stopped drawing because they never scheduled the time into their adulthood. Even if they want to draw or like the idea of drawing when they're by themselves, it just never seems like the thing to do. But actually having the excuse to spend some time making art was fulfilling in the moment, at least. And sometimes they would bring back the pieces that they had, like they had the art that we made together in their wallet. So I've been wondering about meaning for a while, and I've explored it in an academic context and in a bar context and online. The summary of this video is that software engineers can start considering how their artist friends can work with the companies that employ software engineers. Software plus art, that's where people are going to find meaning. Cheers.